This morning on BRN, how not-for-profits can attract millions in online donations. Joining me now is Dr. Christine Kutut, Research Director at the Golub Capital Social Impact Lab at the Graduate School of Business at Stanford University. Dr. Kutut, great to see you. Thanks for joining us this morning.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
We're going to talk about not-for-profits and in particular donations. How important are online donations to America's not-for-profits, whether they be a large organization or a smaller not-for-profit?
You know, it is becoming increasingly important as more people transact online. In particular, a lot of our research is specifically tied to the number of transactions online. And so the more that we see giving go online, the more we need to think about the tools that are available to not-for-profits. And one of the areas that we think about is how can we help organizations that are not as well known make sure that they're able to leverage the online tools.
Yeah, and you reference, or I'll reference some of the tools. You know, I'm thinking of PayPal, Venmo. There's so many other Zelle. There's so many other technologies that exist. Probably too many to name on both my fingers and my toes. But these technologies can really help smaller entities, in particular. I'm thinking about the smaller community-based food banks, et cetera, reach a broader audience and help those donations continue to trickle in, so that you're not waiting for certain times of the year for giving.
That's exactly right. Reach people where they are at. And where they are at is online. And so it's not just about getting the donations through online transactions, it's about that exposure. And increased exposure is just going to increase the probability down the line that they have the confidence to complete that donation when the opportunity does arise.
So how do you change the ask? And again, I'm not from the fundraising world. My mom actually who helps work with the network, was at one point a director of major gifts. But how do you refine the ask of individuals when you're using online tools?
Well, I think one of the themes of the work that we do is acknowledging the fact that people are different. And they come online with different preferences in terms of where they want to give, but also what we consider a potential gift amount. So the gift amount that they might have in mind is going to vary a lot by the individual. And what's great about these tools is that they allow for personalization in a way that can be more challenging offline. And we think that this personalization holds a lot of promise with respect to being able to say, hey, this is what you want to give. This is absolutely a valid amount, and we would be grateful for this amount, as opposed to going in for an ask that maybe is out of somebody's reach, or vice versa. And so we think about these tools having the ability to personalize, to reach more donors and solicit, help them and nonprofits reach their fundraising goals.
You know, I don't know if you've heard of or used Wikipedia. I'm sure you've heard of it, or if you use Wikipedia, I like to follow the Yellowstone episodes and try to see what they're all about before the show's actually aired. That's what I use Wikipedia for. But they're a not-for-profit, and they have a donation. It seems like every time I log in, they have a donation page. Is that what we're talking about here? Like, hey, you're benefiting, or you could benefit, or someone else could benefit, and here are some, 5, 10, or some custom amount. Is that what we're talking about here in terms of giving?
Yeah, I think that is one of the things that you can personalize, is how much do you ask people for? You can also personalize the message and thinking about what is it that this individual wants to know about my request or about my organization in order to make an informed decision.
And how much, every show network you watch, I mean, artificial intelligence seems to be in every conversation, whether it's diagnosing a disease or sifting through data. Is that messaging can that messaging, be based on using some type of generative AI to look at each individual and create a message solely for that person?
I think that's theoretically possible. In practicality, I would not yet trust the technology
Okay.
to give the right response for each person. But that is part of what the work that we're doing is exploring how to use Gen AI tools for individual level interventions.
So if someone's watching this show, and I think there are, and I know there are, that work at a community-based not-for-profit, and they want to, one of the biggest hurdles for small businesses, and I can relate to this, or small organizations, is the lack of resources. How is doing what we're talking about this morning, personalization, is that easy to do for a smaller not-for-profit that maybe has limited resources, limited people, limited human resources to deploy?
One of the things that we think about as our advantage is being able to do the work on a broad, on massive data. One of our experiments has 1.4 million people, another has 400,000. And what we're doing is we're doing that analysis on the large data using the complex tools and taking learnings away from it that we hope that every organization, regardless of the data that they have access to, thinking about how can each type of organization use these learnings. For example, one of the things that we learn is that that you can target large amounts to folks who have donated large amounts historically, okay? And there is some complexity there, but you can use that as a rule of thumb and look at your historical donation amounts to determine previous donors what to offer them. And even at a more basic level, you don't have your own data, but you can target based on zip codes and think about just based on where the person is located, what is an ask that might be appropriate for that area. So I think everybody can access personalization or every type of nonprofit. It's just a question of how to apply the learnings.
Yeah, and it seems to be that, yes, I mean, you always, I guess if you're looking for donations, you always want to go to those who have deep pockets, but there are far fewer number of people with deep pockets relative to the general population. So it probably makes a lot of sense from a business or operational perspective to go after these smaller targeted amounts in terms of raising revenue. We've seen this deployed in other areas as well.
That is certainly where nonprofits are often focused. I think one of the things from our research agenda, we focus exclusively on donations that are on the smaller side for a variety of reasons. One of which is those are the folks that we expect to be able to nudge, where these kind of behavioral nudges are going to matter. Whether or not somebody donates $5,000, you're probably not going to be able to do a subtle change in your messaging line to make that complete. But somebody who's deciding whether to complete a $10 donation, absolutely. And one of the principles behind one of the products we study, which is give at checkout, that little checkbox for $1 when you do your online transactions. The whole idea of that, beyond exposure, as I mentioned earlier, is that $1 from a lot of people adds up. And, we found that a couple of sentences, just like a couple of sentences, can quadruple the rates. So thinking carefully about the messaging. And by the way, that quadrupled rates, that was not unique in terms of different for different groups. What we observed is that this type of information, in particular, quantifying the impact of a charity was impactful for everybody that we could observe in our population, in our sample.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. And look, it's like leverage. This is me interpreting. It's like leveraging great new marketing practices for a good purpose, a good cause. Christine, we're going to have to leave it there. Great research. Thank you so much for joining us. And we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Thank you.
And don't forget to subscribe to our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse, for all the news in one place. Details, of course, at our website. And we're back again tomorrow with another great edition of BRN. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.